John, I want to look at the your top three matchups to circle in this game to watch, specifically on the football field, different positions. You always say quarterbacks don't play quarterbacks, receivers don't play receivers, corners don't play corner. You know what I mean? We always kind of judge them in that regard. What are your top three matchups coming into this game?
Well, I think number one, the splashes would be Pickens against Adoree Jackson. And, big play receiver, inconsistent, but he could make some plays down the field if you let him. So I think, from a fan perspective, that'll be the most interesting. Then to me, the edge rushers versus the tackles are the most interesting. Just like I said, to me, it's weakness against weakness, and whoever perseveres better. I think that will obviously the Cowboys need to play better to win the game. Their tackles need to play better than the Eagles' edge rushers. And, I think one of the more underrated probably thought process in that back seven, Jalen Hurts against Kenneth Murray, is very close to, and also Trevon Diggs, who's very in nose. And
yeah,
so those types of things. And Diggs is kind of guy that he's a gambler. He's Kenny Rogers. So
I think he's had a couple picks though off Hurts, hasn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Had a pick six down there. Yeah, he's going to take chances. So that can result in big plays for the Cowboys and big plays for the Eagles.
You mentioned, John, that Jakorian could potentially be that sneaky starter. What could you put a percent on that for me? It might be hard to do, but
less than 10%.
Okay, so you're feeling pretty confident that it's going to be Adoree Jackson.
Yeah. Yes. At least to begin the season. See, but ultimately, Diggs
is going to be out in this game. Is that correct?
Who?
Trevon Diggs?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen the Cowboys stuff. Now, the ESPN, and we're going to have John on. I know he's been dealing with stuff. Like they list Guyton is questionable. Tyler Smith is questionable. Miles Sanders is questionable. They don't have an injury designation on Diggs. I don't know how.
I mean, obviously, he's just coming off the injury from last year.
Yeah, exactly. So that will if there's reports down there, again, I'm focused on the Eagles.
And like you said, we're gonna have Machota tomorrow.
We're gonna have Machota.
So he'll give us the update on that.
So I mean, there's possibility, but if he's on the field, and the same goes with Deron Bland as well, by the way, who just got the massive extension. I mean, he's the same way. He's just a big play guy. He takes chances.
Yep.
He set the NFL record for pick sixes a couple of years ago. So they take chances in the secondary, but even that could change because now Matt Eberflus is there. So there's a lot of unscouted, uncertain things about week one that, when it's week 8, and I asked Jalen Hurts this question yesterday, if it's week 8, you got film on everybody. You pretty much know what they're doing. Week 1, especially when there's change, there's always change. There's 30% change on the roster. Most teams have changes on the coaching staff. In this case, you have a significant change at defensive coordinator and head coach. It's going to be different than what you think of the normal Cowboys, but we don't know how different. So you got to wait and see.
Yeah, no, that's why I said that week 1 advantage that they have is interesting coming in. And they got those 2 receivers. Look, I think CeeDee Lamb is obviously good, but I wonder how much they're going to line CeeDee up outside as opposed to in the slot when the Eagles have a guy like Cooper DeJean, obviously one of the best slot corners, if not the best slot corner in football. Do they try and kind of game plan around lining CeeDee up against Cooper? I think they could try and do that and see if they can take advantage of that new corner and new safety for the Birds.
Yeah, you would think they would try to manipulate one of the two on Jackson as much as humanly possible. And, depending on who they think is the biggest advantage. Christian Parker talked about, I mentioned traveling because and he said you have to be very static and for Quinyon to travel because he's really going to travel between X and Z. He's not going to go in the slot. So only teams that are very static, they're going to do it against. That's not the Cowboys. So that means they should be able to manipulate who they want on Adoree Jackson for the most part. But we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, no doubt. Johnny Mac, a question here from an outsider or from a spectator perspective. Who do you think has the most pressure in this game? I don't think the Eagles look at it like this, so you can't really judge it from that regard. But Eagles are kind of raising the banner here. It's a big night, obviously, for them. They are talked about like they're talked about in the media right now, which is glowingly, to say the least, as a football team. And the Cowboys have kind of been a punching bag the last couple of weeks. I mean, especially the last week after trading Micah Parsons. Jerry's been one of those guys that people love to take shots at, make fun of, all these different things. It almost feels to me like the Eagles have more pressure in this game because the Cowboys nobody's expecting shit from the Cowboys.
Wow, that's super. They're going to have more pressure on them in pretty much every game. That's being the Super Bowl champions. You're the hunted now. And that's something to keep an eye on because generally you're going to get everybody's best shot. I think you already saw this in practice. I think Cleveland brought their best shot.
And I think Cleveland was pumped up with the way they handled practice.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Even a little bit of confidence.
And I think that's part of it. I mean, that's part of being the Super Bowl champions. Everybody wants to beat you. Everybody wants to take you down, even more so from division rival as well. So yeah, I mean, nobody expects anything out of the Cowboys. Jerry's a punching, like you said, he's a punchline at this point and a punching bag at this point.
Yeah.
Everything he does, people chuckle at, and yeah, no doubt about it. The Eagles have more pressure, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
from Clarence Hill, Clarence was at practice yesterday, so he's another of the great Cowboy reporters. Boy, I always complain about our job. They have a tougher job than we do. The Eagles do it in a different way. They keep us on our toes by always doing shit. They got to deal with Jerry Jones, man.
Dude, wouldn't that be fun to cover as a reporter?
It would at first, but then it would get very tiring. Trayvon Diggs said he did everything in practice today. This was yesterday, so Sunday. No limitations. He wouldn't commit to being on the field against the Eagles. He said it would depend on how he feels. He didn't rule it out, but he feels good. The knee is ready.
Right.
So if the knee's ready, we'll see how they handle it.
Healthy, just maybe not in game shape yet.
Yeah, maybe. Tyler Guyton, left tackle. He told Clarence that he plans to play against the Eagles. But these are players, though. Sometimes they'll say stuff and the team, hey, slow down. So, but those are some of that from Cowboys news from practice yesterday.
Yeah, John, we talked a little bit about the matchups. If you're the Eagles, what are the matchups you're trying to exploit in this game or take advantage of? We know which way the Cowboys will try and take advantage of from the Eagles' perspective because we know everything soup to nuts about the Eagles, so it's easier to call that out. But if you're the Eagles, where do you think the plan of attack is? Who do you try and take advantage of in this game?
Well, a lot of it depends on I think offensively, I think this is a DNA game for the Eagles. Basically you do what you do well.
Right.
Because of all that uncertainty.
Play bully ball is what you're saying.
Yeah. And from the standpoint of most Thursday night games, that's what they are. Because during the regular season, you can imagine you have a little bit extra time. So it's not apples to apples, but most Thursday games are DNA games, and you don't get as much time to game plan and all that kind of stuff. In this case, it's because of the uncertainty, the unscouted nature of week one. It kind of defaults to what you do best, and we all know what the Eagles do best offensively. So I think they default to that, and they say, I don't think Kenny Clark showing up says, "Oh, we can't run the ball." I think they're gonna combo block them to death and try to run the football offensively. And then defensively, it's going to be more interesting because, as we said, the defense has been more interesting all spring and summer because of all the turnover, all the change. It's going to be interesting to see how Vic utilizes Jahad Campbell. It's going to be interesting to watch how he handles Sidney Brown out there, most likely, although Drew Makuba was back. I should have mentioned that. He was back in practice. We'll see if he was limited. Again, they didn't have to have the designations yesterday. That they'll have to have them today.
So that'll go to the Cowboys too. So we'll get at least a little bit from their team.
Yeah, exactly. So, the defense, there's a lot of uncertainty in how it looks. So you're going to rely, but one thing they're going to rely on is Jalen Carter and now Moro Jomo, Jordan Davis inside, Zach Bond, Cooper, Quinion, and Reed. Those are your core guys, and that's who everybody else is going to have to sort of play off those guys, and we'll see how it looks.
Yeah, no doubt. John, you pretty confident that Jahad Campbell's going to be the starting linebacker in game one here?
Yeah, but I do think Trotter's going to have a role. I don't think it's going to be like last year, at least the start, where it was just N'Kobe and Zach. I think you're going to have more of a little bit of shifting there opposite Zach Bond. So I do think Trot's going to have a role. He had a very good summer, but obviously I think they want to utilize the unique skill set of Jahad Campbell. I think specifically in, if they're in the red zone, if the Cowboys are, in the red zone, I think you're going to see a lot of Jahad Campbell in those instances as they try to, pick up the blitz packages or try to confuse them, whether he's coming or dropping, that type of thing. And then if the Cowboys are backed up, I think they'll utilize him. Anytime you can let them go downhill, they're going to have them on the field. The question with Jahad Campbell is when he's going backwards, when he's in space, can he handle that part of the job? And when he gets to that level where he can handle that part of it, then he probably becomes a full-time starter.
A little bit like that safety position you explained, where Sidney Brown is better, going downhill.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. Yeah, exactly. And Trotter's not a better athlete, but he's a better understanding of zone coverages and where dropping and things like that.
A little bit more experience. He's been in the system for, a year and a half now.
Yeah. Plus I do think he's got natural instincts as well, which are, higher level natural instincts. Pretty instinctive player in general.
Jalen Hurts coming into this game, John. What's the expectation from QB1? I love the way he approaches business. I do. He spoke obviously yesterday, and same cool demeanor, especially coming into a football game. But what do you expect to see from Jalen Hurts coming into this game? Year 5 as a starter, man. It goes quick. Time goes quick, especially when you follow. John, I always say when you follow football, you almost realize how quick time goes as opposed to not, because you see players get drafted and then you see them continue to develop and you're like, holy shit, that guy's already 30 years old. Makes time feel quick. But Jalen Hurts coming into year 5, John, what's the expectation on him coming into this game?
Well, I'm going to use his own expectation. Win. That's all he seems to care about. That's all anybody talks about. Doesn't care about numbers. All that kind of stuff. I think that's what everybody else wants to see. I think he just wants to get his team over the finish line. You got to ask the identity question again, which I love because, who knows what their identity is going to be. And he immediately defaults to whatever it takes to win. All right. That's the brand. 110 passing yards, 310 passing yards. 50 rushing yards, 350 rushing yards. Did they win the football game? Did he play effective? Did he make the plays he needs to make to get him over the hump? That's his standard, so that's got to be our standard, I think.
And that's fair.
Doesn't have to be.
I think
But
Patullo is going to be not aggressive, but I think he's going to have a good mix of pass and run in this game. I think he wants to show teams early this team is capable of more than just running the football down your throat. I think Patullo. It's just an inkling. It doesn't mean I know anything, but I think Patullo is going to do a good mix of both in this football game.
Well, and here's where I'll go down my route. Any offensive coordinator can go into a game saying, 64 games, 64 plays, let's say 32 and 32. That's not how it works.
No,
that's not how it works. I know I'm beating my head against the wall here. I know nobody.
No, I don't think you're wrong about that point, but I think there could be
if they're down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, it's a catastrophe. But if they're down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, you're not going to like the run pass ratio. I'm pretty confident. If they're up 2 touchdowns, you're going to like it because they're going to be running the ball down their throat. They're going to be playing bully ball. Literally. And when I say this, 100%, all the personality of the game, all of it is the personality of the game. Now, where that shifts slightly is when you come out your first 15 plays or whatever you script. That's it. So, I mean, pay attention to that. You'll know what they want to do and what the weakness of what they think they can attack on the Cowboys.
Right.
After that, it's feel and personality of the game. All of it. And if it isn't, send that coach back to college where he can run 47 bubbles.
That's correct, Johnny, man. Good stuff. We got a couple more questions here. John, guys, we're going to go an hour today with John. We're going to get Jeff Kerr. Jeff Kerr might be sleeping in on a Labor Day.
What the hell? Yeah, it's too late now if we're only doing an hour show, but he was supposed to hop on.
I'm going to stay on until 9. So if he wants to join me, I'm going to be on. I'll be on after you're out of here. But whatever. Let me know.
By the way, what's going on? I can't tell how many people are watching. I have that. My green screen wasn't working. I have no idea how many people are watching. Nothing. What is going on?
We got over 700 watching right now.
I have no idea. Usually I have
your computer. I know what happened then. If you can't see that, that's because your computer got logged out of your account on StreamYard. That's what it is. I'll get you set up, John. I'll get you set back up. That's probably because I had another person log into it and it might have booted your ass out. Booted your ass out, Johnny Mac. I'll have to get that fixed for you. I think we got a super chat here. Let me get to the super chat. Jay Dilla says Mike is sabotaging both the Cowgirls and the Packers. I don't know. I think he's going to.
I don't think you're going to be happy with Mike in Green Bay as an Eagles fan.
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about our conversation, John, when Micah was traded, and I'm like, yeah, it's good to get him out of the NFC East. I know he goes to an NFC team, but you got to win your division before you can think about winning your conference. So from that perspective, I'm like, it's better to get him out of the NFC East. But it's re-listening to our segment, and I'm hearing you, and you're like, you're not going to be happy to game plan for that guy in a playoff game versus the Packers, and that's what hit me. I'm like, shit, you're probably right. That's going to be a tough. That makes them significantly.
Well, it's funny.
January,
Netflix has the Cowboys show up, so I've been watching some of that. It goes, it tells the whole story of Jerry Jones, buying the Cowboys and all his narratives. But the first big, getting over the hump with those great Cowboys teams, the Emmett, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin teams. It wasn't the Eagles. It wasn't the Giants. It wasn't the Redskins at the time. It was the 49ers. And they kept getting beat by the 49ers, and they kept running up against the 49ers. And then the time when they beat them, the whole show is about how they finally beat the 49ers, and that started the back-to-back Super Bowl titles for Jimmy. It was that team. I get it. Your division rival. When you're a 10-6 team, that's completely true. When you're going for the Super Bowl, your biggest rival becomes that other team in the conference. Maybe it is in your division.
Great point by you. It really is.
It in the 49ers, Cowboys, the Packers and Cowboys. That's what I said, given them fits over the years. Yeah, so it becomes larger. And you saw it to a little extent here with the 49ers when the Eagles bludgeoned them in the championship game, and then the 49ers came back, and all the angst and all the back and forth between the fan bases. They and if that happens over a 3 or 4 year period when both teams are great and you keep meeting the Packers in the playoffs, yeah, Katie bar the door there. They become your biggest rival.
It's a good point, man. It's a really good way to look at it because, look, if we're as a fan base, and I'll include myself in this, not you, John, but if we as a fan base want to say, "Hey, golden era, hey, we're coming for repeats, and what I mean, we want to win multiple Super Bowls, and all," you have to start to change your expectations. And John is correct. Winning the NFC East is going to become small pickings for a team that has expectations like the Eagles do. So, John, good conversation there. NFC East, John, this year. What a great way to open it. I think this opener really sets the tone for the entire division. So we just talked about the NFC East. I think the Eagles have a chance to really set the tone in this division, but going to be an interesting year in this division. I'm curious to see how bad are the Cowboys, or are they a surprise decent team? Do the Giants take a big step forward? I think they have the chance to with the D-line as good as they do. And the Commanders are obviously an ascending team as well, but they got much older. We'll see how they fare. And then the Eagles coming off the Super Bowl. Does this game set the tone for the NFC East this year, John?
I don't think so, only because the two contenders aren't playing till very late. Both games are very late. I think it's fun for so many of the Cowboys Eagles games over the past number of years have been meaningless for whatever reason. Sometimes the Cowboys are good and they're resting people. Sometimes the Eagles are good and they're resting people. And you don't get a feel for the rivalry. At least, playing early in the season, both teams are obviously trying to win. So you get a better indication of where they are. And obviously the Eagles are better than the Cowboys right now. So, but I do think from the standpoint, you don't have to worry that there's good and bad to those late games. If it clicks, it's great. If you're playing for the NFC East in week 18, it's great, or whatever they play. But if they're not, one team's got it locked up, it becomes a waste of an afternoon, basically. As somebody rests to get to the playoffs and all that kind of thing. So there's a give and take to those late season atmospheres, which could be a home run, could be, strikeout. Everybody's going to be fighting to win week one. And so from that part of it, I think it's positive.
Giants play the Commanders week 1, John. I think that's going to be an interesting game, actually, just to see how good are the Giants, or are they good at all, or do they suck again? Now, you won't learn it. It's week 1, so it's going to be sloppy regardless. And then the Commanders, how do they look with their new additions and the things that they've done this offseason, coming off a year where they reached the great pinnacle as well for that organization?
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting story because they've gone with so many veterans and the Eagles have gone with such youth.
I know you like the Commanders, John, but don't you think they maybe went a little old?
I do think they went a little old, but I think people have gone overboard, assuming that all old players are bad.
Well, we have Lane fucking Johnson. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Brandon Graham. How many times you went through it? And they act like they can't play. I'm like, well, I guarantee you Bobby Wagner can play.
Well, Bobby Wagner is probably the only guy in that category, though, over there.
I think as a situational pass rusher, like I said, I'd rather have Von Miller than everybody. If you need a sack on third, I'd rather have Von Miller than the whole lot of them.
Than Josh Uche. You'd rather have Von Miller than Josh Uche?
Yeah. I do think there's some of that is, just Eagle fandom. We're doing it the right way. They're doing it the wrong way. My biggest concern, and this is what happens being a Yankees fan in baseball, because they always build with older players and they always get hurt. That's my bigger issue. That is probably going to be the biggest issue. Guys breaking down. But there are certain guys who are going to play well. And number one on that list is Bobby Wagner. So for people saying, well, he's old. Yeah, okay, he's old. Again, you don't say that about Lane Johnson. Why? Because A, you love the team, and B, he's great. Even at his age that he's not supposed to be as great. That's why they are great. And Bobby to linebacker is what Lane is to right tackle. He's one of the best linebackers ever. So to dispel that guy because he's older, do it at your own, beware is all I'll say.
Yeah, no doubt about it, John. Good stuff here on the opening on a Monday edition, John. It's game week, brother. And the NFL season is officially upon us. Just some broad questions now. I mean, how do you feel about the start of the season coming in here, John? You're what is it? You're going to be your 10th year covering the Eagles or 9th?
Full time. This is number 10.
Number 10, full time. That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. How do you feel coming into year 10 covering the Birds full time?
I do, I'll probably think about that more when I kind of talked about this when last week, my whole thing is getting to see so many great players. And I'll probably think about that more, when it's over, but the Lane Johnsons of the world, the Brandon Grahams. Ty Robinson got Brandon Graham's locker. I'm just sitting there going, it's weird not to see Brandon Graham in there. I maybe
Ty Robinson they gave it to.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, it generally goes by position, and like the offensive line does it in a row, so it's a big deal that Tyler Steen finally has the right guard locker.
Right.
So you see some of those guys leaving, Fletcher, Jason, obviously. And you go, damn, I got to cover those guys. And they're, Lane's going to be in the Hall. Jason's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I think Fletcher should be in the Hall of Fame. Brandon's probably not, but that's insane to me. Slay, he should be in the Hall of Fame. So that's how I look at it.
You also saw a historic season with Saquon last year too.
Yeah, well, Saquon's going to be in the Hall of Fame too. I've already said that. Probably needs a couple more years, but he's on that trajectory. Jalen's on that trajectory. Jalen Hurts is on that trajectory.
4 years started. He's already got a Super Bowl, 2 appearances. I mean, come on. He's definitely on the trajectory.
So to see all these players, and then the seasons, as you pointed out with Saquon, to see that season, to see that last season, that's the best Eagles team in history, at least in the modern era. You can go back to 1949 and 1950. I'm not going back to then, but certainly in the Super Bowl era, the greatest team in Eagles history. And I thought the Super Bowl 57 team was better than the Super Bowl 52 team. So I got to cover 3 Super Bowl teams in 8 years. That's pretty cool. And then when I go back to years prior, I've gotten to see so many great players up close. AJ's in that. It's crazy how many Hall of Famers they're going to have from this team. It's crazy in this era of Eagles football. That's why you got some spoiled fans, man.
Oh, don't blame us. Who do you got like on the team currently? I know Lane's going. Someone says you're a homer for thinking BG should go. I don't think BG is a Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah. Well, good. I like, because people think I hate the Eagles. People think I'm a homer. People think I like this team. Now I like the Packers. Last year I loved the Lions. Boy, I like the Packers. Right.
That's a good. If you're a reporter and your goal is to be objective, it's good to have every different fan base saying you like every other team. It is a good thing. That's a badge of honor, John.
Yeah. Well, last year I loved the Lions. This year I like the Packers. I covered the Vikings, so Pumper, I love the Vikings. How can I love the Packers and the Vikings and the Lions? No, I just talk about who's good the moment. And the Eagles are good in the moment. But yeah, Brandon Graham, he's not he's not going to make the Hall of Fame. I'm saying if people understood his job and understand what he did, he should be in the conversation. To play that long and that productive for that extended period of time. But he didn't get the sack numbers. They love sack numbers.
Yeah.
For edge guys. Fletcher to me is borderline, but he should be in. For years I've been doing this, who's the best pure football player on the Eagles? For a long time it was Fletcher Cox, and I think people forget. Like Fletcher and Jason Kelce, for more years Fletcher was the best player on the Eagles than Jason Kelce. But the perception, because of Jason's other stuff and his personality and his, not that he's not a Hall of Fame player, because he is, but if you're talking year to year to year and you looked at all the years they played together, Fletcher was the better player for more of those years. But a lot of things go into it. I think if Saquon retired tomorrow, he's going to the Hall of Fame, but part of that is because of his pedigree and what he was expected to be. And now that he's had this historic season, I thought that put him over the top. In reality, he probably needs a few more seasons if we were just had Terrell Davis's background, for instance. He would need, or maybe that's a bad example because Terrell's had such great seasons at his prime and he didn't play a long time. But so it's shifting sands, and perception's a big part of it. But the bottom line is so many great players in this era. And yeah, I'm talk about Homer. I'm 100% on board with Slay as a Hall of Famer. 100%.
I don't know if he'll get in. You think he'd get in?
I do, but it's borderline. It might take a while.
There's a lot of borderline guys, man. That's a problem. It's the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Great. But I hear you. There's definitely a lot of good guys. John, last question here for the day on the Birds 365, a Monday edition. 4 days out, everybody, from the season opener. Playoff hangover or momentum, John? How do you view that? Do you put any credence to that when you win a Super Bowl and maybe there's a small hangover? It's obviously can be done. I mean, look at the Chiefs. They went to 3 straight. But do you think that's going to be at all an issue for the Eagles this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's real. That's one of the most difficult parts. I call it more not hangover, human nature. I call it more. I've talked about that a lot from the organizational perspective on down. I think there's a little less sense of urgency. I just think that's natural to let out a sigh of relief and say, we got over the hump. And the Eagles have done all the right things about, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about repeating, except how they don't talk about, Nick laid the law down, 30% turnover, not the same team. Jordan Mailata said it again yesterday. Landon Dickerson will jump down your throat if you talk about it. So they say the right things. But does it look the same? Do you have that same sense of urgency? It's tough. That's probably the toughest part. And it's human nature. It's not anything more than that. Yeah. All football coaches now are like robots or like automatrons. Every single one of them talks about be where your feet are. Get 1% better today. Don't look behind. Don't look ahead. Stay in the moment. Every single one of them speaks the same way. Can you do it? That's harder. That's way harder. Because how do you not look ahead? How do you not look behind? You got to be very mentally disciplined to stay in the moment.
Yep, no doubt. A couple super chats here. Johnny Mac. Luis says, Luis, we did talk about this earlier in the show, but I'll ask it for Johnny Mac now. He says, is Campbell starting?
Yeah, I don't think that's as big of a deal as people make it out to be. But yes, I mean, the key is playing time. Playing time. I do think Trotter will have a role. But I do think Campbell will get more reps. But I don't think it's going to be like last year where you have two linebackers, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, getting them. I think it's going to be more piecemeal, at least to start. Zach will play every down, obviously, and then it will be more of a situational thing. But I do think Campbell will play more than Trotter, and if he plays well, like last year, the plan when Nakobe got hurt against Green Bay, for people that don't know, the plan was to rotate Oren Burks and Trotter, and Oren just played so well, he stayed. So Campbell will have that opportunity. But I think the plan is for Trotter to have a role as well.
Yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. Carson Denniston becomes a YouTube member. Thank you, Carson. I think you upgraded, brother. Appreciate your support of the channel. Call Me Gambit checks in, $5. John is the most unbiased football voice I've ever heard, and that's special to have in the arsenal. And JAKIB, couldn't agree more, Gambit. I appreciate that.
That is one of the best compliments. I appreciate it because that's my goal. That is my goal.
Right.
And I do. It gets frustrating at times because you'll talk good about a team and a certain. Last year was the Lions because I thought the Lions were the best team in football for the majority of last season because I thought they were the best team in football. They couldn't persevere because of all the injuries. And you love the Lions. You love the Lions. But a lot of times it looks like I love the Eagles because the Eagles are so good. I think people that.
Well, I think to your credit, John, and there's a line that you used against me once, and it's a good line. I didn't take it, but you said, at least I'm consistent. And in a world, John, where people are like this, up and down, and the highs and lows of everything that happens, 1 week they're Super Bowl champions, and next week we fire the coach and sell the team. You're more consistent. So that ruffles more people. You know what I mean? People are less used to that or not as maybe not as receptive to it as they are to the hot take world that we live in, John.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I pick on Dan too much, Dan Orlovsky, because it's part of it. I'm sure he's told to do it. I can't prove that, but 1 week he's on there saying Jalen Hurts is terrible, and the next week he's saying he's the best thing ever. I'm like, well, how does this get any credibility with anyone? But I guess it works. So, but that part of it is the hot take part of it is, if you like it, go look for that. But I'm not generally going to be the hot take guy.
No, you're not. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. What's on the agenda for the Birds today? I know you're heading down to the NovaCare complex.
Coordinator day. So Vic Fangio, Kevin Patullo, Michael Clay will speak today. Practice. And then open locker room, the second open locker room of the year. And probably most importantly is the first injury reports of the year, or practice report, I guess it's now called.
Yeah, right. Well, that's going to be significant too, coming from the Cowboys team as well.
Yeah, because they have a lot of guys, as we talked about.
Now, I assume most of this gets manipulated, doesn't it? I mean, not manipulated, but a lot of times you'll see a guy who's questionable, then the day of the game, oh, they're playing.
Yeah, well, Well, Nick is very obsessed with competitive advantage to the point of silliness, really, but he's very obsessed. So he's not.
Do you think that's become more of a trend, though, like at large in the league?
It depends on the coach. Some guys are more. Nick's feeling is that he thinks it's lazy if you don't explore every avenue, even if it's a minute advantage. But which is fine. If he believes it, he believes it. It's not my job to tell him what to believe. But I do think that nobody's paying attention to these, like the Cowboys are preparing for, like Landon Dickerson's going to play. They're preparing for that. They're preparing for Sam Howell to be the backup quarterback because they know Tanner McKee's not going to play. Things like that,
Yeah.
But they'll hold out as long as possible. Not that, you prepare for the backup quarterback anyway, but anyway. So all the subterfuge with injuries is, it's overdone, but he believes it, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, and it's worked. He's had a successful 4-year start, so I would assume he's going to stick to what he's done to this point. Johnny Mac, great show this morning. I'm going to stick on here on Birds 365. We will catch up with you tomorrow. Enjoy the practice today down at the NovaCare Complex. I'm looking forward to talking to you tomorrow, and we're going to have, as you mentioned, John Machota, who's one of the best Cowboys reporters. Is he still with The Athletic, John Machota?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's with The Athletic. We'll talk to him, and then maybe we'll get Jeff Kerr up at some point this week as well for the game. So good stuff, Johnny Mac. Appreciate you doing it, my friend. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow.
All right, and happy Labor Day for everybody as well.
Yep, good stuff. John, thank you, brother.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right, there's Johnny Mac. John McMullen joining us here on Birds 365. A great show today as we get ready. It's game week, everybody. We are 4 days away. Holy moly.